I've never been the type to make a scene. That's probably why I stood there for a solid 12 seconds, bourbon in hand, watching my wife laugh at a joke made at my expense. The consulting firm's anniversary gala was exactly what you'd expect from a mid-tier operation trying to punch above its weight. Rented hotel ballroom, open bar that wasn't quite premium, and junior consultants pretending they weren't already networking for their next position. My wife had been insistent I attend this year, said it was crucial for her advancement. I should have caught that red flag right there. I spotted her the moment I walked in. She was standing near the podium with Jeffrey Branson, one of the senior consultants. Young guy, maybe 34, with that polished look that screams East Coast education and generational wealth. The kind who's never faced real consequences in his entire life. They were laughing about something, standing closer than I would have preferred, but I'm not the jealous type. Or at least I wasn't. I made my way through the crowd, nodding at faces I'd seen maybe 3 times before. Nobody really knew who I was. My wife had always been vague about my work when her colleagues asked. He manages a small firm, was her standard line. Technically accurate. My defense contracting company had 73 employees and handled logistics coordination for 2 major military installations in the mid-Atlantic region. But small firm sounded better for her narrative, I guess. There you are. She spotted me approaching and something flickered across her face. Annoyance, guilt. It was gone before I could pin it down. Everyone, this is my husband. A round of polite hellos. Jeffrey extended his hand with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Nice to finally meet you. Your wife talks about you constantly. Does she? I shook his hand, matching his grip. Funny, she barely mentions you. The smile faltered for half a second. Good. The evening dragged on. Speeches were made, awards were handed out, and I nursed my 3rd glass of bourbon while my wife worked the room. She was in her element here. Confident, articulate, magnetic. I remembered why I fell for her in the first place. That felt like a different lifetime now. Then came the toast. The managing director went first, thanking everyone for their dedication. A few consultants followed with inside jokes that got polite laughter. Then Jeffrey stood up, already 4 drinks deep, based on the flush in his cheeks. I want to make a toast, he announced loud enough to cut through the conversations. The room quieted down. To the consultants who put in the real work this year, especially to those of us who know what it takes to build success from the ground up. He turned, looked directly at my wife, and raised his glass. And here's to the clueless husbands who pay the mortgage while we take their wives to the top. The room erupted in laughter. Not everyone, but enough. Enough that it felt like the walls were closing in. I watched my wife's face. She wasn't laughing exactly, but she was smiling. That diplomatic smile she used when she didn't want to offend anyone. She didn't defend me, didn't say a word. I set my bourbon down on the nearest table. The sound of glass on wood was sharp enough that a few people nearby glanced over. I looked at my wife one more time, waiting for something. An eye roll at Jeffrey's expense. A look that said, "Can you believe this guy?" Anything. She avoided my gaze. I walked out. No announcement, no scene, no dramatic exit. Just turned and left through the main doors. The cold February air hit me like a slap, but it felt cleaner than the air inside. My phone buzzed before I even reached my truck. A text from her. Where did you go? I didn't respond. I sat in my truck for a minute, hands on the steering wheel, engine running. My mind was already working through the pieces I'd been ignoring. The late nights at the office, the weekend strategy sessions, the way she'd pull her phone away when I walked into the room, the way she'd been describing me to her colleagues. Clueless. A paycheck. Someone who existed in the background of her real life. I drove home in silence, no radio, just the sound of tires on asphalt and my own thoughts getting louder with each mile. By the time I pulled into our driveway, I'd made a decision. Wednesday morning was going to be very interesting for Jeffrey Branson and for my wife, because there was one detail she'd forgotten to mention to her colleagues in all those years of downplaying my work. My company had been the firm's client for the past 5 years. Not directly through her, which is probably why she never connected the dots. Our contracts went through their government services division, handled quietly, professionally. No fanfare, just steady, significant business that kept their operation running. I wondered how long it would take for them to figure out who the clueless husband actually was. I walked into our house, poured myself a proper drink, and started making calls. First to my attorney, then to my accountant. By the time my wife came home 3 hours later, I had a plan. She found me in my office, laptop open, documents spread across the desk. "What happened tonight?" She stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "You embarrassed me." I looked up slowly. "I embarrassed you." "Yes, walking out like that, people noticed." "Good." I turned back to my screen. They should have noticed a lot of things. "What's that supposed to mean?" I didn't answer. I had work to do, and for the first time in months, I felt absolutely clear about what came next. She left the doorway after a minute, heels clicking down the hallway. I heard the bedroom door close harder than necessary. I smiled just a little because Wednesday morning was going to change everything, and she had no idea what was coming. Sunday morning, I woke up before she did. That wasn't unusual. What was different was the clarity I felt. No more second guessing, no more benefit of doubt. I made coffee and opened my laptop at the kitchen table. My wife's phone was charging on the counter. She'd never bothered with a complex passcode. Why would she? I was the clueless husband who paid the mortgage. I picked it up and started reading. The messages between her and Jeffrey went back 11 months. They started professional enough. Project discussions, client updates. Then they shifted. Inside jokes, complaints about their respective home lives. Then the line blurred completely. "He doesn't even notice when I work late anymore." Maybe that's for the best. "You're terrible. You love it." I took a screenshot of that exchange, then another and another. By the time I heard her stirring upstairs, I had a folder full of evidence that told a very clear story. Nothing explicit, but the context was damning enough. I closed the phone and put it back exactly where I found it. She came downstairs 30 minutes later, already dressed, hair perfect. "I have to go into the office for a few hours. That Henderson proposal needs prep work before Wednesday." "On a Sunday?" I didn't phrase it as a question. "Yes, on a Sunday. That's how careers work." She grabbed her purse. "Will you be here when I get back?" "Where else would I go?" She paused at that, studied my face for a moment. Whatever she was looking for, she didn't find it. "I'll be back by 4. The door closed behind her. I counted to 90, then pulled up the location sharing on our phone plan. She wasn't heading to the office. She was heading to Jeffrey's neighborhood. Perfect. I spent the next hour on the phone with Arthur Pemberton, my attorney. Not from her firm, obviously. Different practice entirely across town. I'd known Arthur for 7 years, ever since he'd handled the incorporation of my business expansion. "I need a divorce attorney," I told him straight. "Best one you know." That's a hell of a Sunday morning conversation. He didn't pry, which I appreciated. "I'll text you a name, Catherine Russo. She's sharp and she doesn't mess around." "Sounds perfect." "Want to tell me what happened?" I gave him the abbreviated version. The gala, the toast, the messages. He listened without interrupting. "That's rough, man. I'm sorry." He paused. "But if you're calling me this early on a Sunday, I'm guessing you've got more than just divorce on your mind." "I do. I need you to pull our corporate contracts with Branson Strategic Group. Every single one. Review periods, cancellation clauses, everything." Now he was interested. "Your wife works there." "I'm aware. And you want to know your options?" "I want to know my leverage." He laughed, but there was respect in it. "Give me until this afternoon. I'll have everything ready." My next call was to Gary Hendricks, my operations director. Steady guy. Reliable as gravity and discreet. "Boss, it's Sunday. This better be important." I need you to quietly audit every interaction we've had with Branson Strategic Group over the past 5 years. Every invoice, every hour billed, every point of contact. I want to know exactly how much business we've given them. That's going to take some time. You've got until Tuesday night. Can I ask why? Let's just say I'm exploring alternatives for our consulting services. Silence on the other end. Gary was smart enough to read between the lines. Understood. I'll get it done. By noon, I had the framework of a plan. By 3, I had confirmation of what I already suspected. My business represented roughly 42% of Branson Strategic Group's annual revenue. Not quite half, but close enough. That wasn't a client. That was a lifeline. My wife came home at 4:20, looking relaxed in a way that made my jaw tighten. "How was the office?" I asked from the couch. "Productive." She dropped her purse on the table. "Did you eat lunch?" "I did. Found some interesting things to read while you were gone." She turned sharply. "What does that mean?" "Just catching up on work stuff. You know how it is." I stood up, stretched. "Actually, I've got some meetings scheduled for Wednesday. Important ones." "With who?" "Clients. Nothing you need to worry about." Her eyes narrowed, but she didn't push it. She never did care much about my business dealings anyway. The rest of the weekend played out in careful tension. She kept trying to act normal, but I could tell she was unsettled. I stayed polite, distant, and focused on my laptop. Every time she walked by, I'd close whatever I was working on. Let her wonder. Tuesday afternoon, she finally cracked. "Are you upset about Saturday night?" She stood in the doorway of my office, arms crossed. "Jeffrey's toast. You mean?" I didn't look up from my screen. It was just a joke. He'd been drinking. "Was it funny?" "What?" I looked at her directly. "The joke? Did you think it was funny?" She hesitated. That was answer enough. "You didn't defend me." I kept my voice level. "You stood there, smiled, and let him humiliate me in front of your entire firm." "I didn't want to make a scene." "Right, because that would have been embarrassing for you." I turned back to my laptop. "I've got work to finish. We can talk about this another time." "When?" "When I'm ready." She left without another word. I heard her on the phone an hour later, voice low, probably talking to a friend. Or maybe to Jeffrey. Didn't matter anymore. Wednesday morning, I got up early, put on my dress uniform, and drove to Branson Strategic Group, not to see my wife. I'd scheduled an 8-way meeting with Nigel Crawford and Austin Marlowe, the 2 founding partners, the ones who actually made decisions. I sat in my truck outside their building, watching consultants and staff filter in for the day. My wife's car wasn't there yet. She usually arrived around 9:15. My phone buzzed. Arthur called. "Everything ready. Russo will call you at 10 a.m. Good luck." I smiled, pocketed my phone, and walked through the front doors. The receptionist looked surprised to see a military officer. "Can I help you, sir?" "I have an 8 with Crawford and Marlowe. Names on the schedule." She checked her screen, nodded. "Conference room A, 3rd floor." I took the stairs. Felt better than the elevator. Gave me time to center myself. Both partners were already there when I walked in. Crawford was older, maybe 62, with gray hair and sharp eyes. Marlowe was younger, more analytical, the type who probably ran the numbers while Crawford handled client relations. "Thanks for meeting so early," I said, shaking their hands. "You said it was urgent." Crawford gestured to a chair. "What can we do for you, Captain?" I sat down, placed my folder on the table, and looked at both of them. "Gentlemen, we need to talk about Jeffrey Branson, and we need to talk about what happens to this firm if I take my business elsewhere." The room went very quiet. Marlowe leaned forward. "I'm sorry, I don't think we've been introduced properly." I smiled. "No, we haven't." But your billing department knows me pretty well. So does your government services division. I'm the owner of Hendricks Defense Solutions. We've been your client for 5 years. Crawford's face changed. Marlowe's fingers actually twitched toward his phone. Now, I continued opening my folder. Let me tell you about Saturday night. Crawford and Marlowe listened in complete silence as I walked them through Saturday night. The toast, the laughter, my wife's reaction. I kept it factual. No emotion, just events in sequence. When I finished, Marlowe was the first to speak. That's completely unacceptable. We had no idea. Of course you didn't, because Jeffrey Branson doesn't see consequences. I slid a printed spreadsheet across the table. This is 5 years of invoices. Every contract, every billable hour, every dollar my company has paid this firm. Take a minute and look at the total. Crawford picked up the sheet. His eyes went to the bottom line and stayed there. $1.8 million, Marlowe said it quietly, like he was doing math in his head. Over 5 years, roughly $360,000 annually, which, according to my research, represents about 42% of your firm's revenue. I leaned back in my chair. Now, I'm not a consultant, but I am a businessman. So let me lay this out clearly. Jeffrey Branson publicly humiliated me at your firm's event, and my wife, who's a consultant here, stood there and let it happen. We'll address this immediately, Crawford said. Jeffrey will be reprimanded. Reprimanded? I let the word hang there. That's not going to work for me. Marlowe's jaw tightened. What exactly are you asking for? I'm not asking, I'm telling you how this goes. I kept my voice level. Jeffrey Branson is terminated today, before lunch. And there's going to be a very clear message sent that this kind of behavior isn't tolerated at your firm. That's a significant request, Crawford said carefully. It's not a request, it's a condition of my continued business. I stood up. You have until 11 this morning to decide. If Jeffrey is still employed here at 11:01, I pull every contract, every retainer, everything. And I'll make sure every defense contractor I know understands exactly why. Marlowe stood up too. And your wife, she works here. That's between you and her. My marriage is my problem. But if you're asking whether she's part of this ultimatum, the answer is no. What you do with her employment is your call. I'm only concerned with Branson. I picked up my folder and walked to the door. Crawford called after me. This will have significant implications for the firm. I turned back. Then you should have had better control over your senior consultants. Gentlemen. I left the building and sat in my truck. It was 8:47. My phone rang at 8:54. Marlowe's number. It's done. Jeffrey's being called in now. He'll be out by 10 SD. Smart choice. This isn't over, though. There will be questions, explanations needed. That's your job, not mine. My only job is deciding whether to keep doing business with you. I paused. For what it's worth, I've always been satisfied with your firm's actual consulting work. It's the personnel management that needs improvement. Understood. He hesitated. Your wife, does she know you're the client? Not yet, but she will. Probably around the same time Jeffrey gets escorted out. I hung up and drove to my office. Let the morning play out however it was going to play out. Gary was waiting in my office when I arrived. I saw the email from Branson Strategic. They're requesting an urgent call about contract renewals. They can wait. What else? Richardson Aerospace called. They want to expand their distribution network. Could be a significant contract. Set up a meeting for Friday. I dropped into my chair. And Gary, when my wife calls here today, which she will, tell her I'm in meetings all day. He raised an eyebrow but didn't question it. Got it, boss. My phone started buzzing at 10:22. Her number. I declined the call. Then a text. What did you do? I didn't respond. Another text 3 minutes later. Jeffrey just got fired. They're saying it's immediate termination. What's going on? Still nothing from me. Then, please call me. People are asking questions. This is humiliating. I almost laughed at that last one. Humiliating. She was worried about being humiliated. At 11:45, my office phone rang. The receptionist. Your wife is here. She's pretty upset. Tell her I'm not available. She says she'll wait. Then she'll be waiting a long time. I'm leaving through the back in 10 minutes. Reschedule my afternoon to tomorrow. I grabbed my jacket and took the service exit. My truck was parked on the side street. I drove to a coffee shop across town, found a quiet corner, and finally checked my messages. 21 texts from her, 6 voicemails, 4 missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize. Probably her friends or colleagues. I listened to one voicemail. Her voice was shaking. I don't understand what's happening. Jeffrey got fired and everyone's looking at me like I did something wrong. Please just tell me what you did. We need to talk about this. I deleted it without listening to the others. My attorney, Catherine Russo, called at noon. I have everything ready when you want to proceed. Do you want to file this week or wait? This week. Can you have papers ready by this afternoon? I can. Where do you want them served? I thought about that. Home would be private, but private wasn't what this situation called for. Her office, tomorrow around 3 GNU. That's bold. She had no problem letting me get humiliated in public. Seems fair. I'll make it happen. One other thing, we should talk about asset division. From what you've told me, most of the significant assets are from your business. Correct. The house is in both names. But I put down the entire down payment before we got married. I have documentation. Good. This should be straightforward then. She'll probably fight it. But the facts are on your side. We talked through details for another 30 minutes. By the time I hung up, I felt lighter, like I'd been carrying weight I didn't realize was there. I drove home around 5 OIN. Her car was in the driveway. I had expected that. She met me at the door before I could even get my key out. Where have you been? I've been calling you all day. Meetings. I walked past her into the house. Don't do that. Don't just brush me off. She followed me to the kitchen. What did you do? Why did Jeffrey get fired? I poured myself water, took my time drinking it. He got fired because he's an arrogant piece of work who doesn't know when to keep his mouth shut. That doesn't explain anything. People are saying you had something to do with it. People are right. Her face went pale. What does that mean? It means I'm not the clueless husband who just pays the mortgage. I set the glass down. Hendricks Defense Solutions has been a client of your firm for 5 years, a significant client. And Saturday night, one of their senior consultants decided to publicly mock me. So I had a conversation with Crawford and Marlowe this morning. They made a business decision. She stared at me. You got him fired. I gave them a choice. They made the smart one. Do you have any idea what this does to me? Everyone thinks I'm involved somehow. My reputation is destroyed. Your reputation? I nodded slowly. That's what you're worried about. Not that you stood there and let him disrespect me. Not that you've been downplaying my work for years. Not that you've been spending your Sundays somewhere other than the office. Her expression changed. What are you talking about? I'm talking about Jeffrey's neighborhood. I'm talking about 11 months of messages. I'm talking about a lot of things that suddenly make sense. You went through my messages. You left your phone open. I read. She tried anger first. That's a violation of privacy. So is humiliating your husband at a work event. I headed for the stairs. I'm tired. We can talk about this more tomorrow. We're talking about it now. I stopped halfway up, turned back. No, we're not. Because tomorrow afternoon you're getting served with divorce papers at your office. In front of whoever happens to be around. So you've got tonight to figure out how you want to explain all this to your colleagues. The color drained from her face completely. You can't be serious. I'm very serious. And just so we're clear, this isn't negotiable. This isn't something we're going to talk through or fix with counseling. This is done. You're throwing away our marriage over a stupid joke? I came back down the stairs, stopped right in front of her. I'm ending our marriage because you chose your career and your pride over basic respect. The joke was just the moment I stopped making excuses for you. I went upstairs, packed a bag, and left. Checked into a Courtyard Marriott near my office. Clean, quiet, and most importantly, away from her. She called 8 times that night. I didn't answer any of them. Tomorrow was going to be interesting. Thursday morning felt different. I woke up in that hotel room, and for the first time in months, maybe years, I didn't feel that weight on my chest. No walking into a house that felt cold. No wondering what she was really doing when she said she was working late. I showered, put on a fresh uniform from the bag I'd packed, and headed to the office. Gary was already there when I arrived, coffee in hand. "How you holding up?" he asked. "Better than expected." I took the coffee. "What's on the schedule?" "Richardson Aerospace at 11:07, quarterly review with finance at 1:1, and your attorney called, said everything's set for 3 years." Perfect. The morning moved fast. Richardson meeting went well. Potential expansion that could add another $125,000 to the quarterly revenue. Finance review showed we were up 18% from last year. Everything in my professional life was solid. At 2:15, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Is this Hendricks Defense Solutions?" A woman's voice, professional. "Speaking." "This is Olivia from Branson Strategic Group. I'm calling to schedule a meeting with Mr. Crawford regarding your contracts." "Transfer me to Crawford directly." A pause. "He's in a meeting currently." "Then have him call me when he's out. I don't do messages through receptionists about 7-figure contracts." "Of course, sir. I'll let him know." I hung up. Crawford called back in 7 minutes. "I wanted to reach out personally," he said. "Yesterday was handled quickly. Perhaps too quickly. We'd like to discuss how to move forward." "Jeffrey's gone." "That's all I needed." "Yes, but there are other considerations. Your wife's position, for instance." "I told you yesterday that's not my concern. She's your employee, not mine." "She's been placed on administrative leave pending an internal review." I didn't say anything for a moment. "That's your decision. I'm not asking for that." "We understand, but there are optics to consider. The situation between her and Jeffrey. It raises questions about professional conduct." "Then handle it however you handle those situations. My business with your firm is separate from whatever she did or didn't do." "We appreciate that clarity." He paused. "For what it's worth, the rest of the firm values your business. We'd like to continue that relationship." "We'll see. I'm meeting with 3 other firms next week. Nothing personal, just exploring options." That got his attention. "I understand. Please let us know if there's anything we can do to maintain your confidence." We ended the call. I leaned back in my chair. My wife placed on leave. Jeffrey fired, and I hadn't even served the divorce papers yet. At 2:30, my phone buzzed. Her number. I let it go to voicemail. Then another call. Another voicemail. A text. "Please don't do this. We can fix this. Just give me a chance to explain." I put the phone face down on my desk. 3 hours came. I imagined the scene. Process server walking into Branson Strategic Group, asking for her by name, handing over the envelope in front of whoever was nearby. Her opening it, reading the first page. My phone exploded at 3:18. 11 calls in 4 minutes. I turned it off completely. At 4:01, I turned it back on. 29 missed calls. 18 voicemails. 41 texts. I didn't read any of them. Catherine Russo called at 4:45. Papers are served. She took it about as well as expected. Lots of crying, some yelling. The process server said half the office saw it happen. Good. Your wife tried calling my office 8 times already. Wants to talk settlement. There's nothing to settle. The prenup is clear. She gets what she came into the marriage with. Everything else stays with me. She's going to fight that. Let her try. I've got documentation on every asset, every down payment, every business investment. She can hire the best attorney in Virginia and she'll still lose. You sound confident. I am, because I'm not wrong. We went over a few more details. Timelines, court dates. By the time I hung up, it was after 5. I decided to call it early. Headed back to the hotel. The lobby was quiet. I grabbed my key card from the desk and headed for the elevator. That's when I heard her voice. I've been waiting for 3 hours. I turned. She was sitting in one of the lobby chairs, still in her work clothes, eyes red from crying. How did you find me? I kept my voice neutral. I called every hotel near your office. This was the 4th one. She stood up. We need to talk. We don't. Please, 10 minutes. That's all I'm asking. The desk clerk was watching now. I didn't want a scene. Fine. 10 minutes. Outside. We walked out to the parking lot. Evening air cooling down. Traffic noise from the main road. She started talking immediately. This is insane. You're throwing away 9 years over one bad night. It's not one night, it's 11 months of messages. It's years of you treating my work like it doesn't matter. It's you standing there Saturday and letting that clown humiliate me. I made a mistake. Jeffrey and I, it wasn't physical. It was just talking, just emotional support. Emotional support? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You were getting emotional support from another man because your husband, the guy paying for the house you live in, wasn't good enough. That's not fair. None of this is fair. You want fair? Fair would have been you defending me Saturday night. Fair would have been you shutting Jeffrey down the first time he crossed the line. Fair would have been you valuing your marriage more than your office reputation. She was crying now. Actual tears. I'm sorry, I know I messed up, but we can fix this. Counseling, therapy, whatever it takes. I don't want to fix it. I want out. You're going to regret this. I doubt it. I started walking back toward the hotel entrance. She called after me. I'll fight the prenup. I'll get attorneys. I'll make this as difficult as possible. I stopped, turned back. Go ahead. Spend whatever money you've got saved on attorneys. Drag this out for months if you want. It won't change the outcome. The prenup is airtight and every major asset is documented as mine. You'll walk away with exactly what you brought into the marriage, which if I remember correctly was about $18,000 in savings and a leased sedan. Her face went white. But hey, I continued, maybe Jeffrey will help you out. Oh wait, he's unemployed now. And from what I hear, having trouble finding new work. Turns out getting fired for cause doesn't look great on a resume. You destroyed his career. He destroyed his own career the moment he thought it was acceptable to mock a client's husband at a firm event. I just made sure there were consequences. I walked back inside, took the elevator up, and locked the door behind me. Sat on the edge of the bed and let out a long breath. My phone buzzed, a text from Arthur Pemberton. Heard about the service today. You doing okay? I typed back. Better than expected. Thanks for the referral. Russo's excellent. You're in good hands. Drinks this weekend? Yeah, I could use that. I ordered room service, pulled up some work files, and spent the evening doing what I should have been doing all along, focusing on what actually mattered. My business, my future, the things I could control. Around 10 p.m., one final text came through from her. This isn't over. I deleted it without responding. She was right about one thing. It wasn't over, but the ending was already written, and she just hadn't accepted it yet. 4 weeks later, things had settled into a new rhythm. I'd moved into a furnished apartment closer to the office. Nothing fancy, but comfortable. The divorce proceedings were moving forward exactly as Catherine predicted. My wife hired an attorney who tried making noise about asset division, but the prenup held firm. Jeffrey Branson, according to mutual acquaintances, was still job hunting. Word had gotten around about why he was fired. The consulting community in Northern Virginia wasn't that large. People talked. My wife had left Branson's strategic group quietly. No dramatic exit, just a resignation letter and 3 weeks that she didn't bother working. I heard through Arthur that she'd taken a position at a smaller firm in Maryland. Significant pay cut. I was working late Friday when Gary knocked on my office door. "Nigel Crawford's here. Says he doesn't have an appointment, but was hoping you had a minute." I was surprised but curious. "Send him in." Crawford looked older than he had 4 weeks ago. Tired. He shook my hand and sat down without the usual small talk. "I wanted to update you personally. We've restructured some things at the firm, brought in new oversight for senior consultants, implemented policies about workplace conduct." "That's good to hear. It should have been done years ago." He paused. "I also wanted to say that what happened at that gala was inexcusable. Not just Jeffrey's behavior, but the fact that it happened at all. You deserved better." I nodded. Didn't need to add anything to that. "Are we going to lose your business?" he asked directly. "I met with 3 other firms. Good consultants, competitive rates." I leaned back in my chair. "But they're not you. Your firm does solid work, always has. It was the culture that was broken, not the service." "Does that mean you're staying?" "It means I'm willing to continue, as long as the quality stays consistent, and I never hear about another incident like that gala." Relief showed on his face. "You have my word, and thank you." After he left, I sat there for a minute. Felt strange having that kind of leverage, but I'd earned it. Built my business from nothing, maintained relationships, delivered results. Nobody got to take that for granted. Saturday afternoon, I signed the lease on a house. Small, 4-bedroom, good neighborhood. Fresh start. Moving in next week. My phone buzzed. Text from Arthur. Final hearing scheduled for 7 weeks. "Should be straightforward," I typed back. "Good. Ready to close this chapter." 7 weeks. Then it would be official. Then I could really move forward. I locked up the office, drove to my temporary apartment, and started packing boxes. Most of my stuff was still in storage from when I'd left the house. Didn't need much. Uniforms, laptop, a few personal items. Starting over at 43 wasn't what I'd planned, but it beat staying in something that had been broken for longer than I'd wanted to admit. The respect I'd lost, I'd gotten back. The dignity I'd had stripped away at that gala, I'd reclaimed. And the life ahead of me was mine again. That was enough. The final hearing took 18 minutes. Judge reviewed the prenup, looked at the asset documentation, and signed the decree. My ex-wife's attorney tried one last argument about equitable distribution. The judge wasn't interested. Walking out of that courthouse felt like breathing clean air for the first time in years. Catherine shook my hand on the steps. "That's it. You're officially done. Thanks for everything. You made it easy. Clear documentation, no games, just facts." She smiled. "Good luck with everything." I drove to my new house. Boxes were mostly unpacked now. Office set up, kitchen functional, bedroom comfortable. It was mine, every square foot of it. Gary called that afternoon. "Richardson expansion is finalized. Contract signed. We're looking at 23% growth next quarter." "Excellent work. Let's plan a team meeting next week to discuss logistics." Business was good. Better than good, actually. Turned out that when you weren't spending energy managing a failing marriage, you had more focus for things that actually mattered. 3 months later, I ran into Austin Marlowe at a defense contractor networking event. He approached me directly. "Wanted to say thank you again. The firm's culture has improved significantly since the changes. Glad to hear it. Your contracts are up for renewal next month. I'm hoping we'll continue working together. Send over the terms. I'll review them. He nodded, seemed satisfied with that. We talked briefly about industry trends, then went our separate ways. On my way out, I saw her across the room, my ex-wife talking with a group of consultants I didn't recognize. She looked tired, older somehow. Our eyes met for a second. She looked like she wanted to say something. I nodded politely, the way you acknowledge any former acquaintance, and kept walking. No anger, no satisfaction, just nothing. That's when I knew I was actually done. I got in my truck, drove home to my house, and made dinner in my kitchen. Simple meal, quiet evening, no drama. My phone sat on the counter, silent. No desperate texts, no voicemails demanding answers, no manufactured emergencies. Just peace. I'd learned something important through all of this. Respect isn't something you ask for or hope people give you. It's something you enforce. And when someone shows you they don't respect you, you don't waste time trying to change their mind. You just walk away. And you build a life with people who already understand your value. 7 months ago, I was the punchline to someone else's joke. Today, I was a man who knew exactly what he was worth and refused to settle for less. That was the only ending that mattered. But I need to tell you about something that happened 2 weeks after the final hearing. Something I didn't see coming. I got a call from Austin Marlowe on a Thursday afternoon. His voice sounded strained. We need to talk, in person. Can you come to the office tomorrow morning? What's this about? Jeffrey Branson and your ex-wife. He paused. There's been a development. I didn't like the sound of that, but I agreed to meet. Friday morning, 9Y. When I walked into the conference room, both Marlowe and Crawford were there. So was their corporate attorney, a woman named Meredith Sachs, who I'd met once before on contract reviews. Thank you for coming, Crawford said. He looked exhausted. We've uncovered something that you need to know about. Meredith slid a folder across the table to me. After Jeffrey's termination, we conducted a thorough review of his client files. Standard procedure. What we found was concerning. I opened the folder. Inside were printouts of expense reports, hotel receipts, and credit card statements. What am I looking at? Jeffrey was billing client entertainment expenses to your account, Marlowe said. Dinners, hotel rooms, travel? Over the past 11 months. I looked closer at the dates. My stomach tightened. These weren't business expenses. Are you telling me I was paying for... Yes, Meredith cut in. We believe Jeffrey and your ex-wife were using your company's retainer to fund their personal meetings. The room went quiet. I flipped through the pages. Hotel in Arlington on a Sunday, 4-star restaurant in Georgetown on a Saturday night, weekend trip to a resort in Charlottesville, all of it billed as client development or strategic planning sessions. All of it charged to my company. How much? My voice was steady, but my hands weren't. Marlowe cleared his throat. Approximately $47,000 over 11 months. I looked up. $47,000. We're prepared to issue a full refund immediately, Crawford said quickly. Plus interest, and we'll be taking legal action against Jeffrey for fraud. And my ex-wife? I asked. Was she aware these charges were being billed to my account? Meredith opened another folder. Based on the communications we've recovered from Jeffrey's work laptop, yes, she knew. In fact, there are several messages where she jokes about it. She slid a printout across the table. Jeffrey, dinner tonight? I'm thinking that new steakhouse. Her, expensive. Can we afford it? Jeffrey, don't worry, your husband's paying for it. Her, that's terrible. I love it. I read it twice. Then I closed the folder and stood up. I want copies of everything, every receipt, every message, every fraudulent charge. Of course, Meredith said. We've already prepared a complete file for you. And I want a letter from your firm documenting all of this, signed by both of you. I looked at Crawford and Marlowe. Because I'm reopening the divorce settlement. Catherine Russo was livid when I showed her the documents. This changes everything, she said, spreading the printouts across her desk. Fraud, misappropriation of marital assets, deliberate deception. The judge is going to crucify her. Can we go after the money she spent? Every penny, plus damages, plus legal fees. Catherine was already making notes. And with this level of documented fraud, we might be able to challenge other aspects of the settlement too. I don't want to be vindictive, I said. I just want what's fair. What's fair is her paying back $47,000 plus interest. What's fair is her explaining to a judge why she thought it was acceptable to steal from her husband while cheating on him. Catherine looked up. Trust me, this is fair. We filed the motion the following Monday. Emergency hearing scheduled for 2 weeks out. My ex-wife's attorney called Catherine 3 times the first day, 6 times the second day. By Wednesday, they were requesting a meeting to discuss settlement options. Tell them no, I said. This goes to the judge. You sure? They're probably going to offer the full amount back. I'm sure. She made this public when she stood there at that gala and smiled. Now she can stand in front of a judge and explain herself. The hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday morning. I got there early, sat in the back of the courtroom, and watched other cases get processed. Custody disputes, asset divisions, the usual machinery of broken marriages. Then our case was called. My ex-wife walked in with her attorney. She looked smaller somehow, scared. She saw me and quickly looked away. The judge, a woman in her 60s named Allison Harper, reviewed the documents with the kind of expression that said she'd seen everything and wasn't impressed by any of it. Miss Nyla Russo, she said, looking at Catherine. Walk me through this. Catherine stood. Your Honor, after the dissolution of this marriage was finalized, new evidence came to light showing systematic fraud by the respondent. Over an 11-month period, she and her former colleague conspired to charge personal expenses to my client's business account. Expenses related to their extramarital affair. I have the documentation here. Judge Harper held up the folder. $47,000 in fraudulent charges. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor. All documented, all verified by the respondent's former employer. The judge turned to my ex-wife's attorney. What's your response to this? He stood, cleared his throat. Your Honor, my client acknowledges that mistakes were made. Mistakes? Judge Harper's eyebrows went up. Counsel, these aren't mistakes. These are deliberate fraudulent charges over nearly a year. Does your client dispute the facts as presented? A long pause. No, Your Honor, she does not. Does she dispute that she was aware these charges were being billed to her husband's company? Another pause. No, Your Honor. Judge Harper set down the folder and looked directly at my ex-wife. Stand up, please. My ex-wife stood, unsteady. I've been doing this for 23 years, the judge said. I've seen a lot of bad behavior in divorce cases. But this, deliberately using your husband's money to fund an affair, mocking him in writing while doing it, this is particularly egregious. She turned to Catherine. What's your client seeking? Full restitution of the $47,000 plus 18 months of accrued interest. Legal fees for both the original proceedings and this motion, and a formal acknowledgement from the respondent of fraud and deception. And from the respondent, Judge Harper looked at the other attorney. Your Honor, my client is prepared to agree to full restitution. She's also willing to cover legal fees. We would ask for a payment plan. No payment plan, I said, standing up. The judge looked at me. Mr. Hendricks, you'll have your chance to speak. With respect, Your Honor, she can sell the car I co-signed for. She can take a loan. She made these choices over 11 months. She can find a way to make it right in one payment. Judge Harper considered that. Counsel, does your client have assets she can liquidate? She has a vehicle, some savings. Then that's what she'll do. Full restitution within 30 days. Legal fees within 60 days. Any disputes about the amounts will be resolved through arbitration. The judge signed the order. And one more thing. Miss Hendricks. My ex-wife looked up, tears streaming down her face. You're fortunate your ex-husband didn't press criminal charges. What you did was theft. If I ever see you in my courtroom again for anything remotely similar, I will refer the matter to the district attorney. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, she whispered. We're adjourned. Walking out of that courthouse the second time felt even better than the first. Catherine walked with me to the parking lot. That went about as well as it could have. You'll have your money within the month. It was never really about the money, I said. It was about the principle. Well, you got both. She shook my hand. Take care of yourself, Captain. I drove back to my house. My actual house now, no question about it. And for the first time in almost a year, I felt completely settled. The business was thriving. The divorce was truly over. The people who disrespected me had faced consequences. And I was free. 6 months after that final hearing, I was at another networking event. Different venue, different crowd. I was talking with a program manager from one of the defense agencies when someone tapped my shoulder. I turned. It was Richard Patterson, an old colleague from my early military days. We'd served together overseas, lost touch after I transitioned to contracting. Hendricks, thought that was you. We shook hands, caught up. He'd moved into private security consulting, doing well for himself. Hey, he said, there's someone I want you to meet. She just started her own logistics firm, specializing in humanitarian supply chains. Brilliant woman. I think you two would hit it off. Professionally speaking. He led me across the room to where a woman was talking with a small group. She was in her late 30s, professional but approachable with an easy confidence that came from knowing her field. Graciela Marchetti, meet Captain Nigel Hendricks. Nigel, this is Graciela. She just landed a major contract with an international relief organization. We shook hands. Her grip was firm, professional. Hendricks Defense Solutions, she said, recognition in her eyes. I've heard good things about your operation. Likewise about your work. Humanitarian logistics is a different beast from military contracting. Different challenges, same principles. Get the right supplies to the right place at the right time. She smiled. Just with fewer explosions, hopefully. We talked for 20 minutes. Professional stuff, industry trends, mutual contacts. No pretense, no games. Just two people who knew their business and respected each other's expertise. When the conversation naturally wound down, she handed me her card. If you ever want to grab coffee and talk shop, let me know. I'm always interested in learning from people who run successful operations. I'll do that, I said. And I meant it. Not because I was looking for anything romantic. Not because I needed validation. But because this was what professional respect looked like. Two equals, two professionals, two people who understood what it meant to build something real. I drove home that night and thought about how far I'd come. From standing in a ballroom, humiliated and dismissed, to standing in my own house. Running a successful company, respected in my field. The difference wasn't just time, it was choice. I'd chosen to stop accepting disrespect. I'd chosen to stop making excuses for people who didn't value me. I'd chosen to walk away from what was broken and build something better, and that choice had made all the difference. If you found this story valuable, hit that subscribe button.